We're good.
All right, we'll officially call the meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. And this is the Governance Committee for the Economic Development Corp of Warren County. And so just note that Mike McClarity was not able to attend this meeting, but Paul and I are here, so we have enough for a quorum. And Paul, if you had a chance to check the minutes from the last time.
I did. Since I wasn't here, I assumed them to be accurate.
Okay. So I guess
You can still,
they can still
You can
propose
still-
the approval of the minutes.
well, and you can even vote for it, as long as you know that you weren't there.
Fair.
All right, a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second, motion passes, so the minutes from the February 11th meeting is approved. And then the next order of business is to discuss open board seats and candidates for that. I know the one thing we talked about last time was hoping to get someone with a finance background. And simultaneously, Jim Marco has put in his retirement with Glens Falls Hospital, so I did talk to him about a potential replacement. He hasn't given me a name yet, and I did tell him it would be nice if we could get someone with a financial background, so I think he's thinking about,
Did Jim have a date?
I think it's October is when he's finishing up. But he's happy to go sooner if they so choose.
Yeah. Well, I think ski season starts in November. So
Yeah, right, because he's gotta be up on board,
Yeah.
because he's a volunteer, right?
He's,
The
he's
safety
kind
patrol?
of, he's like the
Like the
strong,
mayor up
yeah,
there.
of the ski patrol and kind of the group that runs everything on the mountain.
Yeah, which is great, it's good for him. Yeah, so I believe it's October, so I will have another conversation with him now that he's had time to think about it.
Are we looking for someone from the hospital?
Well, it would be nice if we could have a twofer there. What's happening on the financial front is that we know at some point we will lose Kathy.
Right.
And so we need an ongoing pipeline of people who can provide, they don't have to be a CPA, but they have to be able to provide some finance oversight. Laura's term also will end in the next 2 years, I think. So at one time, we were very strong in this. We had probably 4.
Yeah,
But now we're just trying to prepare for at least having one person who can help with the finance stuff. I think it's really important that we keep the hospital on board, regardless of whether it's a finance person or not.
Because I know Craig Latrino, the controller over at the hospital,
oh,
he would be great.
He would be
if he has
great.
capacity.
that's wonderful. You have a relationship with him?
I do.
Okay. So that's a great suggestion, especially if you think he'd be open to doing it. Okay.
Well, I can't speak to that. He works for the hospital and has small children, but
Right, that's all right.
he would be a good addition.
I think we're a low impact lift this year.
Yes.
Gonna get involved.
What was his last name again?
Latrino? Please don't ask me to spell that.
That's fine, I got it. Okay, so I will talk with Jim again and suggest maybe he might be a candidate.
So we still have one open board seat.
Right.
We'd had some conversation about potential candidates to apply there. Melanie's actually given us a number of names to engage, but more on the advisory group level than on the full board level. And we've had some of those conversations.
Oh, good.
Which is good. We'll talk about that maybe in a minute. But I'm still wondering if it's almost like we should back up and say, besides finance, what are the other either sectors or skill bases or relationships that we're looking for, and kind of work backwards here? Because oftentimes we've kind of been focused on purely the large scale employers when our board was smaller. But I think now with a bigger board, we have the opportunity to kind of spread out. But I don't know how much everybody's actually thought about what would we like to have if we could. But we'd had this conversation about smaller business, and there were some names that still sit on the list that Tricia had originally created there that we could pursue. I went out and saw Joe Gross, and I keep wanting to engage, not so much him, although he'd be wonderful. It's just that I
Yeah.
think he's in the semi-withdrawing stage.
Yeah, his son though.
Yeah, but his son would be a coup. It's just he is working very hard to shield his son from this kind of stuff. And their business, they've hired almost another 80 people since the last time I talked to them. So it's a big, big business. There's nearly 500 people that are working, not so much out of that facility, but our
Yeah.
nexus
He's
out of
got a
that
wide-
facility. Yeah, and they're working all the way down to South Carolina. So,
Oh, wow. I didn't realize they went out of the area.
oh yeah,
Oh, wow.
But
It's
he's
mostly commercial?
yeah, but it's really big work. You know, it's
Yeah.
high end, high capacity electrical work. And I think what happens is firms that have worked with him when they open facilities want to see if he would come do the work there. I don't think he's working completely up and down the seaboard. I think he's working as far away as South Carolina.
Yeah, because I feel like he did one of my health centers at the very least. He might have done Salem, I'm not sure, or Glens Falls.
So we will keep knocking on that door, but I don't know that there's an answer at the moment.
Yeah.
We had
What about some of the auto industry ones too?
the relationship at Romeo was one that we tried to figure out who
Yeah.
had it. Ironically, Mitch was the one
Oh, okay.
who had the strongest one there. Nobody else seems to have any ongoing relationship with them. Chris, when she was still here, did have some initial conversations with them. And I don't know whether they didn't go anywhere or they were left open-ended.
Yeah.
Probably worth following up with her on.
I know Mike Romeo.
Okay. I mean, I think it's really up to you guys to decide what directions you want to go with this. Another thing to consider is we found ourselves in this role on South Street, being kind of a convener or at least center point of issues. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the city has been very open about the fact that they're attempting to outsource code enforcement to the county.
Oh.
They've already communicated that to their code enforcement employees, even though they don't yet have that agreement made with the county. I'm not sure I would have done it that way, but that has left this entire area in some amount of confusion. And so we don't normally get involved in that kind of stuff, but I've been asked by 4 now businesses on the street to engage. I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that we're operating at a level that the city hasn't normally seen, this much construction and this much new enterprise all at once. I think they're also changing a lot of things with the new administration. But the point on all of that is there's an opportunity, I think, if we wanted to think about, is there some entity that is based here on South Street that we would want to be able to bring that kind of voice up to the board level about what good and bad, what is it like to develop here?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we could ask people like Bonaccio, which we've had before. I talk with Larry a lot, and it really wouldn't matter who it was as long as they had an ongoing relationship with the properties that these guys are going to run. But they're going to be major landlords here. You know, they'll have hundreds of apartments and double-digit number of retail spaces. That's a lot. I don't know whether they would be willing or want to do that, but we're doing it anyway. We're having to engage with them. That part's new since the last meeting. We actually have represented more than one now at the planning board in their concerns. And I think what that means is that the businesses, I'm glad to see us as an advocate.
Yeah.
But normally that would be something that we wouldn't have to be involved in, which is like its own challenge here. I mean, Ed would go appear for select new businesses that were coming into the area, mostly so that people could see that they were vetted and legitimate. But he didn't get into the nitty-gritty details of why are we in front of the planning board and does this really require a variance? And that's the kind of thing that we're being engaged in because there's so much confusion here about what can or can't be done. By the way, this runs all the way to the bank. You know, I've talked with Dave about what is going to need to be a long-term discussion about parking here. And the bank is clearly, you know, addressing some of that on their own, but there doesn't seem to be any construct right now to do that.
Yeah.
And I think Bonaccio and you and the city are eventually stakeholders in whatever that long-term solution is. And I wonder if there isn't value in the EDC being kind of an ally in that process so that you're not having to do this solely as a business owner, but we talk more about this from a standpoint of what is the economic impact to the community and why we would advocate for it in general. We've had a role in this, whether we want to or not. Ed's the one who laid out the original plan. The original plan couldn't be executed for a variety of reasons, but mostly of cost. And then when I took over, I counseled the then mayor, Dan Hall, and then Bill to take lease spots in 333 Glenn's garage so that they could advance the project because the state wouldn't advance the money until they had shown that they had parking.
Yeah.
But that isn't a long-term solution. That was simply meant to be able to move through the construction phase. I think this is going to be a major thing in downtown over the next few years, especially as we have hundreds of new residents here.
Yeah, we've actually moved some of my women's health from 90 South to West Mountain Family Health and to Moreau to release the pressure on parking. It also helps patients to go to different locations. But.
Just something to consider.
So someone from,
Well, I think that Bonaccio's relationship with us is not done. They're going to be long-term, you know, landlords here. They're also actively looking for next wave construction work here. And
are they someone, do you know someone there that we should talk to?
well, Larry, I'm trying to think what his last name is.
Novik.
Yeah, Novik. X is their kind of BD guy. It doesn't have to be him, but I think it's probably someone on his team if it's not him.
They're gonna have a site manager here for the larger of the two housing projects. Could be a logical fit, but that individual wouldn't be on the development side. That would be more of a drop in by Larry.
Well, I just wonder if we shouldn't have a conversation with Larry to say, well, what is it that you would like?
Yeah.
And how might we approach that?
Yeah.
Whether it's with this opening now or a subsequent opening.
Sure.
Yeah. If you can get a meeting, I'm
Okay,
happy.
well, I talk to Larry quite regularly. I just didn't want to do it without having some conversation here.
I'm happy and all your available would be great.
What I would probably do is suggest it to him, and then as long as he doesn't shut it down, I would then connect him probably to you, Sue, to talk about what you see as the responsibilities of a board member, because that way you'd have the perspective from both of us.
Yeah, that'd be great, and then we can set up a time to meet for lunch or coffee or whatever. I like that one.
Are there other active candidates that you remember from her list?
I need to pull the list. And do you want me to circulate it?
Well, I mean, I think we have it.
Okay.
From the last time Patricia sent it out.
I'll need
I
to.
just don't know that there's been any change in it.
I don't think so.
So we should add Larry to it.
So should I be reaching out to either Craig or Mike?
I'd probably hold off on Craig is
Craig's
the hospital.
He's the
I think that one we should pursue right away.
Okay.
I think
Reach out to Craig.
I think maybe on the Romeo one, we reassess like the timing on this.
Okay.
Like, what do we want to do next? I'd like to know whether Bonaccio is up for this, and if they feel some sense of urgency about doing this, that seems logical to have them have a board seat and committed in the community at that point, both of you would be part of the EDC community. It would be very logical for us to be involved in it. Hey, John.
Morning, John.
Morning, Jen. All right, did you also say, does Kathy Mundell have two roles right now?
Yeah, she's the vice chair and she's
Oh,
also
the
the chair of the audit and finance, but she desperately wants to come off of that.
Okay,
Um,
the audit and finance.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think for her, the ability, the need to have to chair or potentially chair 2 meetings in a month
plus
is
for
a
all the
lot, right?
applications. Yeah,
And Melanie would very much like her continuity as a vice chair more than as
Yeah.
the audit and finance, which is why we need more finance leadership.
is there someone else likely, how many people are in that group other than Laura, and, is Judy in there?
Judy's on that, Jim Marco's on that, so
Um,
it would be very
So
logical
it would be like if we
for
could
somebody
get
to slide
Greg
right in there.
Yeah,
Laura will stay there for at least another year, but I think that's when she terms out.
okay. But we might be able to slot her in that role for the year.
Yeah.
Just to have
She
someone
has,
senior.
she has not accepted a leadership role with the Audit and Finance Committee. We have approached this with her,
And she's declined.
yes. And I mean, to be fair to her, she has a real struggle to make the meetings, but she does make most of them.
Yeah.
But, you know, she's an active working accountant.
Yeah.
So, especially during tax season, you know,
Well, tax season's over.
well, it doesn't appear to be to her.
Even yesterday, she seemed
Yeah.
like she was pretty busy.
I'll be,
She provides great input
She
and
does.
guidance to Deanne. She doesn't want the responsibility of having to develop the agenda. And during the audit season, which is her busy season,
yeah,
the leader of that committee does have to engage independently with the auditors, sometimes multiple times.
okay.
And I think that's her concern.
And Judy can't serve because she's an appointed role.
Because she's representing the city,
Yeah,
and they're somebody who we are in contract with, it's inappropriate.
right. So the logical person is the person to replace Jim.
I think that's the conversation we need to have right away. I'll talk to Larry, and then I think the conversation with Romeo might be one that we have after that.
That's fine. It would surprise me if he were interested in being on the board. Something more like an advisory role where he could throw in opinions might suit him better anyway.
Well, then we'll look to see what his thoughts are and slot him in either way, part of a pipeline one way or another.
Sure.
There was discussion with Melanie about bringing in someone from the auto industry to the advisory committee too.
Yeah, and she had also mentioned the gentleman that runs Subaru in the bike shop. I can't remember his name.
Gardy.
No, North Country Subaru. It's actually Chris's next door neighbor.
We do a lot of business with North Country Super.
So that was that name is
That's not
actually
that
on that list.
Okay.
So I think the other thing that we've just recently had an executive committee that's made up of, it's Melanie, her vice chair, and we put Matt on
Yep.
because he kind of acts as counsel
Yeah,
and
yeah.
some continuity of leadership.
Yep.
That hasn't normally been something we've been able to call on, but one of the conversations we're trying to have with them is what strategically over, say, 5 years, what are we hoping to do with board composition?
Yeah.
As an input to you guys as governance.
Mhm.
And she's eager to have that conversation. It's one of the reasons she wants to form the advisory group is to build
Yeah.
a kind of a long-term pathway.
Yeah, that
Sure.
makes sense. Succession.
So we will have, at an upcoming executive meeting, we'll have a similar conversation with them, but on a more strategic level.
Right. All right,
So
so you'll talk to Larry, you'll talk to Craig. Do you want me to find my contact at North Country Super?
I think between that and Romeo, we would probably wait till the other two
Okay,
conversations.
hold those both.
Right.
Okay.
Although it's not a bad idea to find out from them what their interest is in this. But I don't know whether we have a urgent need or a pending need.
Okay, then we'll do it in that order. Craig and Larry first and then.
You want to talk about the advisory board real quick?
Yeah, so this is again, another one of Melanie's priorities is to bring in an advisory board to prompt us for discussion for the full board, to bring up issues that we may not be hearing from representation of the community.
Yeah.
It includes, it's a wide variety of folks, solo entrepreneurs, small businesses, small and growing developers. We discussed also, Jim Marco has an interest in staying involved. So Melanie would like to see someone like him maybe as an advisor on that committee.
Okay.
Sort of just a way for people to stay involved as they exit the traditional role on the board.
What do you imagine the tempo of engagement to be there?
So we discussed maybe like a quarterly meeting. I think we would strategically place it between board meetings. I think also just having open discussion, so being available for them to just reach out to us separately, so outside of the quarterly meetings. It's going to be less formal than a board meeting, but just to bring about, like Jim said, current issues that people are facing on South Street. So there are businesses on South Street that we've talked about bringing in. And then having representation from all of the communities that we serve. So not just downtown West Falls, bring in Queensbury, which is again where the auto dealerships have come in, like including Della, in addition to the other two we discussed. Lake George, we talked about North Creek, and then all the way up to Shroom Lake. So just grabbing pieces from everywhere, fitting them all together. I think I have a couple names to shot past you as well from Melanie. So I think we're up to probably 15 to 20 possible folks.
So we've actually talked with 2 or 3 that I think are going to be core in any composition. One of them is Spencer, who runs Realize Brokerage here on the corner. He's actually the broker for an awful lot of what goes on South Street.
He's a commercial real estate
Yeah,
broker.
and he's what's next. Bob Sears is in his 70s, and Mark Levac is in his 60s. Those are the 2 commercial real estate brokers that have essentially managed this market for decades.
Okay.
I think it's really important that we be kind of on the ground floor of what's coming next, and they already have a significant portfolio. So he's one, and we've engaged because he's been the one that has brought his clients to us looking for help. So he's already started to see the value here. In addition, we talked to Journey Kirchner, who is the managing partner of Downtown Social and Downtown City Tavern. They also own a double-digit number of small housing units in the city. That was one of Melanie's thoughts, is he's not currently engaged in any board, the bid or the chamber, but has significant portfolio perspective. We actually met with him because he asked to see us for help on one of those projects and indicated that he would be eager to play exactly this kind of role. He's not so sure he wants to be on the full board yet, and we weren't asking him to be, but he said the idea of being able to bring voice was helpful. We met with the bid over this whole connectivity grant, and Melanie is the vice chair of the bid. I think Tyler runs it. Tyler's also from the Queensbury. Tyler Herrick is also the chair of the Lake George Chamber. But there are a number of players there who I think we would benefit from their voice, one of which is Jeff Mead, who runs the Civic Center. He's reluctant to commit himself to another board, but I think he would like a place where he could bring his thoughts and see whether or not there's support for it before he attempts to advocate for it, because it always looks self-interested. But what's interesting is that he presents a visitor perspective to Glens Falls that most people don't have. Because he's hosting thousands of people a year, many of which are not from here. So those 3, we've had some actual dialogue with. I think we have a list now of more than 10 of people that either Melanie or others have suggested. I think it makes sense for us to keep an ongoing list. Like this list could be 25 names long.
Yeah.
What we need to explore here is, as a public entity, what are the responsibilities for meeting conduct? There's no business being done. There's no decisions or money being committed.
It's truly an advisory.
So I don't believe they have to be noticed, and I don't believe the public needs to be a part of this, but we have to confirm that.
It's
It is
like
in
a
our,
research group, like a resource research group.
well, we're gonna get, clear guidance on that before we execute on this, so we're doing this the right and proper way. But the interest from people is to provide input, not to make decisions, and there is reticence. They want a place to be able to bring that where some discussion can occur that isn't necessarily yet public. I think there's value in that if we can figure that out. It's not sneaky, that's actually in the interest of gaining insight.
Yeah. I think it's helpful.
So all of that's happening, but we're looking to launch this in June. So this is going to be some discussion at the full board. I think Melanie will probably lead a lot of that conversation. She's pretty engaged on this, which is
She's awesome.
great. Yeah.
What a good call you had.
Well, I have to tell you, she's already worked wonders in helping in places where our traditional relationship maybe
Yeah.
put us, like with a new mayor, like there's a period of time where we have to advocate for things that may or may not be what they ran on.
Right.
But she doesn't have that, and so she's been very effective at kind of providing another perspective. Really, really, really great.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Anything else on the advisory board?
I guess we will probably circulate like a one pager about that
At the board meeting.
at the board meeting, and then just sort of bare bones draft of what we see it as. Should I include names on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, all this is a brainstorming list of
Yeah.
people, and I think we're just going to continue to add to it.
That way we can grow it. But yes, any of your input would be great. And if any of these folks that we've discussed for board positions aren't interested in a larger role, that might sort of defer to this committee if they still want to be involved.
One of the things that we've been deeply involved with this year is something called Mosaic, which we started. It's all the arts organizations in the area, of which now more than 85 have been connected to this effort. That's a lot. We think there's probably between 100 and 150 in the area in total. The IDA, through Chuck Barton's kind of advocacy, just committed up to $200,000 to do a new economic impact study of the value of the arts to the community beyond their mission and societal and cultural value. Those studies have existed before. There was a creative economy one that was done in the Capital District a number of years ago, but it's very hard to discern the role of our ecosystem in that because it was dominated by much larger ones, say like Proctor's or SPAC in the region. I actually talked to Elizabeth Sobel about this, who leads SPAC. She was a big advocate for this because she said that until they could clearly articulate their own economic impact, it got lost in the giant morass. And so they took the creative study and then they used that to then further refine what their piece of it was. And they've been very successful at leveraging that into both grant and other forms of investment. So she said that's the model that she thinks would make sense here too. The key thing about this is not just that the arts organizations are being recognized as a part of maybe the not so visible economy. It's also a step towards how do we provide value in the white space that goes beyond the borders of Warren County, but that clearly benefits Warren County. So for instance, the Siegel Music Festival sitting across the line in Essex, but for 120 years, basically people, I would say the majority of the people who participate in that are coming from here.
Yeah, and he has opera singers from all over the world that come here to perform.
So they're a part of this. And so this idea of what are the regional assets that need to be highlighted. TIE is another one. It sits as part of the ecosystem around Lake George, but it's across the line in another county. But it really essentially is more a part of us than they are Lake Placid.
Yeah.
And I think there's this notion that, well, we should think about where the economy is. You know, like who do your organization serve? Who does your organization serve? Now, increasingly, you guys are very, very large, regional. I actually think that is the long-term place where some, not all of what we do has value, and we could expand our role, all of that. But the easiest way to do that is to take a concentric circle from where we are and gently expand it. The arts world operates that way. So for instance, the majority of the money that goes into the Hyde does not sit in the 12801 zip code. Some of it's national, some of it's regional, some of it's local, and even that is local goes well beyond Glens Falls. And so that impact is also part of this. The reason I'm saying all of this is that I think there's a look on this advisory group to also use it in some way this way, not just in sectors like the arts, but also in areas that gently border us and are not, have potential value of being a part of the EDC community and maybe are not seen that way.
Yeah.
There also may be some leadership from those organizations that could be a good voice on that committee.
Yeah, we thought about John Laffner, the Hyde director.
So John is the co-organizer of Mosaic with us.
Okay.
So we're on the ground floor, and Mark Bean is
Okay.
also deep in that. Now he sits on their board, but I think he also sees this ecosystem kind of in its totality.
Sure.
Darren Wood sits on that board.
Doesn't. Okay. Well, so I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. I'm not so sure that there's any specific for you to do yet, although we may be looking to create a class of membership that essentially allows these communities of interest to be a part of our universe without it looking like we've essentially lost our core mission. You know, these are what I consider to be kind of secondary aspects of our role. I never want anybody to think we've decided to abandon our core work in the interest of this, but there are literally several thousand people involved in this part of the economy.
Yeah.
So I think that it does have a role here. We're just trying to figure out what it is. So more on that to come. I don't know if there's anything else. Anything from you?
I didn't know the Seagull Festival existed until Darren came on our board. I'm like, we have an opera company right here? I had
There's a
no
world-class
idea.
one.
I was going to Glimmerglass, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And he puts on some amazing productions there. He is, I don't know if you've ever talked to him, he's the most amazing person, worldly person. He's been all over the world, he's connected to so many people, and his husband, it's just, yeah, they're amazing.
Well, I see them a lot because I'm in Scroon a lot,
Yeah.
but also they've been involved in this effort. And then he came down with me to Adirondack Day, which is interesting. Most arts organizations don't think of themselves in that kind of advocacy with the legislature thing, but he did. And it's because he knows he has a lifeline to New York City. His pipeline is essentially feeding
Yeah,
places like
he's
that.
got a huge task to grow millions for the program, and I have no doubt that he'll do it because of all the great people he knows, but I highly recommend going to one of his shows
And their gala is something else.
on that.
Yeah. I think that's everything from us.
Yes.
Any other business? No, I don't have anything I can think of.
What's that?
And no need for executive session.
No.
All right, so a motion to close the meeting at 9:35 a.m.
That should come from me.
I'll second. The motion
Drop
carries.
that out. Let me-
Meeting officially ends.
I know you both got to go, but let me just mention quickly this whole John Fair thing. You got to remember that I didn't necessarily volunteer for this. The money showed